Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on LaSalle TV. I'm your host Josh Abrams, and today we're going to do a big Eagles recap of their season, and then when we come back we're going to talk about the 76ers and the stretch that they're continuing to go on. All of that and much more here on Sports Talk Philly.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
And welcome back from the intro. As usual, I have an amazing panel on hand with me today to discuss the Eagles. Gia Lancey, Jack Rohr, and Sam Long join me today. Guys, let's get right into it. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see the Eagles play for a while. A heartbreaking loss to the Saints a couple weeks ago ruined our playoff hopes. However, we do have a lot to talk about, including free agents, cuts, trades, the whole 9 yards. So let's just start, since this is a recap of the Eagles season. 9-7, we sneak into the playoffs, and on literally the last possible day of the regular season. What is your guys' thoughts about the 2018 regular season for the Eagles? And I'll leave this open to anyone.
I was pleasantly surprised with how far they went. I wasn't expecting them to go into the playoffs with the amount of injuries they had, and I was expecting them to win the Bears game when we found out that they were playing the Bears. I had no faith whatsoever that they were going to beat the Saints, and then they came out, made it a game, and I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, obviously it was a difficult way to end, but I was so happy how far they went.
Personally, I believe that this season they rushed Carson Wentz back. They started panicking 2 games in when Nick Foles was performing like, regular season Nick Foles, not playoff Nick Foles. And then they rushed him back. The ACL is generally a 1-year injury. It took like 9 months. He was back, and he wasn't right all season. We could tell he went 5 and 6 in games he played. That's just not good enough. He looked good, but he was like a step behind. I think they should have let him sit. Honestly, take a lesson from the Sixers. Sit your star for a season. You're amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to piggyback off what Jack said right there. If this season taught me one thing, it's that injuries are everywhere. Injuries are scary. These injuries kept me up all night, all year. I want to walk outside of the house wearing saran wrap, bubble wrap. I'm not risking what happened to the Eagles for my 2019 season.
And you know what? I really, as out of the blue that is, I really can't blame you, because the amount of injuries that we had to go through this year compared to last year was just absolutely. It was just horrifying, the amount of people that went down in games this year, and that's really going to bring us. That's going to really help us segue into this free agency talk, because some of these guys that we've seen over the past couple of years get injured and go down for an extended period of time. Some of them aren't going to be back for this team in 2019. So I guess where do we start? What do you guys think about the free agency situation? Who do you want back? Who do you want traded? Who do you want to pick up? It's such a complex situation to deal with, but it has to be done, and Howie Roseman's going to do it. So what are you guys thinking if you're Howie Roseman?
I think that our biggest priority is Brandon Graham. I think after his injury from the Super Bowl, I don't think he had enough time to recover either. And I think maybe in the last 3 or 4 games, we're starting to really see him come back to his normal self. But I still don't think he got there. Maybe the last 2 games. But I think he's a priority. He knows our defensive scheme, and he just plays good with the team. And he's somebody that we need to definitely re-sign.
I really like Ronald Darby. We've had him for a season and a half. Our secondary, after everybody got injured this season, was really rough, and he's a good corner. We need him. There's not a ton of guys I don't think that we can pick up to really make that improve over what we have in him. I think we need to keep him around and then improve around him, because what we have right now is not going to cut it with the injured group that was in the playoffs.
Yeah, as much as Golden Tate says, on Twitter he did state that he'd like to stay with the Eagles next year. I do want to see Golden Tate gone. I wasn't a fan of the trade for him from the beginning. I don't think it paid off well for the Eagles. There was one key moment where I was like, wow, Golden Tate really made a difference. But Other than that, he averaged 9.7 yards a catch, 1 touchdown in the weeks we had him. I don't think we need him anymore.
I think that is unfair, though, because I don't think he played well with Carson Wentz, but I also don't think a lot of people played well with Carson Wentz other than Zach Ertz. So, I mean, I think that he played okay with Nick Foles, and I think he was just starting to, like, get into it and really, like, flow with the team. But I do want to see him again. I think he's a really good fit for the team, and the fans love him, and I think he's a Philly guy that we could do for one more year.
Well, here's a situation then. If we're going to talk about Golden Tate, you got to decide. At this point, you got to decide between either him or Nelson Aguilar, right? It really goes hand in hand. You got to remember we have Mike Wallace too. This team is pretty much stacked with a mix of veterans and young guys like Nelly, but there's only so much room for a 53-man roster team. So it's like what do you see? Like what do you see in Golden Tate that you may not see in Aguilar?
Well, Golden Tate's getting old. He's getting up there. I believe he's going to be, 32 this coming season. I don't like him. Nelson Aguilar, ever since last year, when I saw him week 1 catch that touchdown from Carson, I knew he was going to be my guy for the next few years. I really still see potential in him. Sometimes he lets me down, but he'll always be there for me.
It's also important to remember, guys, that we're basically $12 million over the cap. Now, we know how good Howie Roseman is at, fixing problems like that, but there's just too many players that we have to focus on too. We're talking about the wide receivers right now. Let's go to the backfield. Jay Ajayi, who's been pretty much banged up all season. We don't know if he's going to be back with us next year. We've talked about Ronald Darby and Golden Tate and Brandon Graham, but what about the old guys? We got to figure out what we're going to do with Darren Sproles, and I don't want to see Jason Peters on the field again. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, the Jason Peters thing is interesting. I think you definitely got to find a new left tackle, because even in the games he's been out, Hal Vaitai, he's not cutting it. You got to find a different guy, potentially in free agency. This guy Donovan Smith, he could be a good pickup for the Eagles. I think he could really cut it, and he'd be a cheaper guy. Not many people know about him. You just need to find that replacement. Even if he is back, you need to find someone who will slot him better than Vaitai has.
I think that if Sproles wants to stay for another year, I think it's worth it to sign him because, what hasn't he done for us, really?
Just to go off of that, I really think that because Darren Sproles was hurt and not playing for most of the year, that was probably a big reason why Carson wasn't as effective. Because if you remember his rookie year, when Sproles was fully healthy and Carson was fully healthy, Carson, if he didn't have anything down the field, he would just dump it off to Darren Sproles, and we know how much of a playmaker Sproles is.
Yeah, going off just this whole running back debate, I think it's time for the J train to roll out of Philadelphia. He's a little banged up.
Honestly, Jack's not happy
that's
about
interesting.
That.
I heard he was doing good and that he's actually looking positive.
Did you?
But.
I'll take your word on it. But Josh Adams, he looked lovely this year. I don't know what else I can say.
My only concern about him is that he didn't get a single playoff snap. I don't know if that was just their lack of trust in him.
No, it was
I think they have
weird.
the offseason to develop him a little bit more. I don't know. I have faith. I like to see the young
He did
guys.
look good in those games where he was actually the workhorse back for us. You reacted a little emotionally to Jay Ajayi.
Jay Ajayi is a solid, established running back. Josh Adams, he did okay in his games. He looked okay. I can't say he looked good. I think he was okay. Jay Ajayi is established, and a good quarterback needs an established running game, especially when he was trying to come back from injury. He needs a good running game that he can just trust to hand the ball back to push the defense and make them have to guess more between pass and run. Carson Wentz didn't really have that this year as everyone got injured. It wasn't anyone's specific fault. Everyone was gone, and that's why I think he really struggled.
So what side of the ball do you guys think is going to need the most work in terms of filling in the spots that need to be filled? Because I think we know how set up this offense is for the next couple of years, and especially in the further years down the road with Carson as our quarterback. But what about the defense? It seems like the defense is just a rotating mess, especially with the injuries. But now we have to worry about the key guys like Graham and Hicks. So, do you guys feel that the defense needs more work?
I really like Jordan Hicks. It's definitely a huge problem that he gets hurt all the time. But I think that it's an option to look in the free agency market, but I think that it's really expensive right now, and I don't think that they're going to be able. I think that the cheapest option for them is to keep Jordan Hicks, and it's not a bad option either.
Yeah, like you just said, I don't think there's much on the free agency market in terms of, like, if we're trying to switch out defensive players, it's looking like if we're trying to push out the old guys, we need a younger star. And there's not many people right now that scream out, pick me up off free agency. We have Earl Thomas coming back, broke his leg last year. He's turning 30. He's not bad. DeMarcus Lawrence on free agency from the Cowboys. I know that's sacrilege, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Jack, what do you think?
To be honest, I think both sides of the ball need a lot of work. I was talking about the secondary earlier. They were pretty rough. I do like Crayvon LeBlanc. He intercepted Breeze on that play. It's very nice to watch. And he was the weird incompletion in the Bears game. He caused that too. But that's like the one guy. And Avonte Maddox.
Yeah.
I like them, but they're both young, raw pieces. They need to improve that. In the offense, we've been talking a lot about that too. The wide receivers, the running back. There's a lot. Jason Peters in the offensive line. Every element of the offense needs some work. Just everything needs work.
Yeah.
We're still confused on the quarterback. Everything needs work. I don't know what's going on in Philly.
I don't think the Eagles are confused on the quarterback. I think some of the fan base is. But with that being said, I guess before we go to commercial, we know that Doug, Mike Groh, and Jim Schwartz are going to be back as the coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator, respectively. Do you guys have any concerns at all about them? Because I know Jim Schwartz, people thought was on the hot seat. Mike Groh not being able to integrate Golden Tate into the offense. What do you guys think?
I think Jim Schwartz got lucky because I think the secondary all really improved. And, I mean, I think he had something to do with it, but I think they did a lot of it themselves, too, and just by getting that in-game experience. But I'm happy with it. I don't know.
I guess,
I'm content.
Yeah, sure.
You need stability in an organization, and bringing all them back. Mike Groh, this is his second year now as an offensive coordinator, right?
I guess next year will be.
He's going into his second year. Yeah, you can't just keep replacing that and keep on bringing in new systems and changing things. You need stability to let the players learn and let them, eventually they'll just really, really understand, and it'll be very simpler and smoother.
Yeah, the second half of the season, it seems like things really started to improve with all three aspects of the ball, coach, OC, DC. I think we should give it one more year. If things don't work out with Jim Schwartz, if still not playing well, just get rid of him. It might be time. Yeah,
so maybe it's a little bit early to think about that kind of stuff, but we know that they're going to be with us for 2019. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk some Sixers. Stay tuned. Tell me you didn't watch the Phillies game last night.
You know, unfortunately I did, and it was just so heartbreaking to see the first day batter strike out.
Claude Giroux hasn't done anything for this organization.
I'm confused. You're doing an internship in sort of marketing and production, right?
I really can't believe that Ben Simmons won't be dropping threes on the court this year.
Hey, Tanya, I know you're really busy, but could you tell me who the Sixers play on October 28th? Doctor, in order for the Eagles to win this week, they're going to need 250 passing yards from Carson Wentz. We're going to need 100 yards rushing. I don't care who it is. We're going to need a lot of good production from our tight end and wide receivers. And I'm going to need 5 interceptions from Malcolm Jenkins. Yeah, Mom, look, I know the money situation isn't good right now, but I promise you Travis Konechny's going to have a breakout year.
Hey, I had to climb to the top of Mount Everest to find Nick Pavetta's ERA.
Sports Talk Philadelphia. We talk nothing but sports all the time.
Back. We're going to talk some Sixers now. Sam stepped off, and replacing him is Jake Copestick. Jake, thank you for joining us. Let's get right into it, guys. The Sixers, they really hadn't done too much since last show. They've only played 2 games. They go into Denver shorthanded. They don't have Embiid or Wilson Chandler, so kind of figured that they were going to lose that game against Denver. But then they bounce back. They go to LA, who was shorthanded themselves without LeBron James, and we took care of them, winning by 16. Let's just get general thoughts. We're 33-18. We hold, I think, the 3rd or 4th seed, and if we're the 4th, then we're like that close to getting the 3rd seed. How are we feeling right now?
I'm feeling good. Oladipo's injured. Pacers are gone. It's 4 teams at the top of the East, and one of them is the Sixers. So I think there's a solid chance they go to the Eastern Conference Finals. After they trade for Anthony Davis, they're going to go to the Finals, and they're going to win it all.
Don't start
Done.
yet.
That
Don't
was a
start
lot
yet,
of
Jack.
information
Done.
to
Go
take
ahead,
in.
Jake.
I'm feeling pretty good, so to go off Jack's point, I never really thought the Pacers were a threat to the Sixers in the East.
No.
The Celtics, I really don't know what's going on with them. Kyrie's been out of the lineup. They think like I said last show, they think they have too much talent, so I don't really know what's going on with that. But I mean, they're top 2 or 3 in the East, so I think they're going to end up going to the finals. But I think at least me, I'm happy with where they are right now.
Yeah, I think their upcoming games too are really gonna show if they're a playoff contender or not.
Yeah, and that's really what this stretch has been. Once we started with that Indiana game, and I think that was before Oladipo got hurt, because that's now 2 times we've gone in there and beaten them. But anyway, when we go into Indiana and beat them, that was like the first big test of this tough stretch. And now we're about in the we're about like a third of the way through, or we're like almost done basically with this tough stretch of games. But let's talk about the stars, the guys that have shown out in these games. So obviously we're shorthanded without Embiid. It's safe to say he's the MVP, right? Because we just can't seem to win games without him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of hard. The Sixers don't really have a whole lot of depth as far as center goes. Jonah Bolden, he only had 3 points in 11 minutes the other night in Denver. Muscala he couldn't even start over Jonah Bolden. They have him coming off the bench a lot. So, I don't know if the Sixers need to trade for a backup center, but they really don't have any depth behind him, and they can't really seem to have anything offensively or defensively when he's out of the lineup.
MVP-wise, he's definitely in the conversation. He's got some solid competition. James Harden on that massive scoring run. I don't know if it's ended yet or not. I haven't been paying any attention recently. But it's all he's definitely – Embiid's in the conversation. And I guess without him, losing games, they definitely just need to find a decent backup center. They don't have that right now, as Jake was just saying. They just need to find that.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, that they definitely need a backup center, especially because of Embiid's back issues and stuff. But I also think that they need a backup point guard to create his own shots and stuff, because TJ McConnell just isn't doing it for us.
Yeah, and it's sad because I really like
Me
McConnell, and I like guys like Landry Shamet, but I do see what you're saying. Let's talk about Corey Brewer. I don't think it was it really a surprise to you guys that he just came out of nowhere and just started helping out the team? Because for me, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't for me either. Corey Brewer, he plays defense. He always plays hard. He shoots threes. So I honestly wasn't even surprised when he started right away when he got here, when there was some injuries to the starting lineup, because that's what he brings. That's what he's brought his whole career. And I'm glad the Sixers did pick him up.
He's just a solid player. I'm surprised he was on the free agency market because he slots into so many different teams. He's a good wing, which is basically what the NBA is right now. It's just 5 wings on the court and 5 wings on the other side of the court playing against each other. Corey Brewer's a solid wing, and he brings defense, which not a lot of them do. So I'm glad the Sixers have him, and he slots in real well.
I just think the fact that he was a lottery draft pick, 7th overall in that 07 draft, and he came from a winning culture with Billy Donovan at Florida. I think it was inevitable for him to come in and help us out right away. But I think right now we should talk about Anthony Davis and anyone else that you guys think that the Sixers should possibly trade for. I'm gonna send it over to you, Jack.
Really?
Yeah, because you're the one who brought it up without me letting you. But
it's
go
been
ahead.
on my mind for the past couple days. Ben Simmons for Anthony Davis. Who says no?
Me.
Why?
I know. Are you saying straight up Ben Simmons for Anthony Davis?
I feel like the Sixers might have to include more. Anthony Davis is a top 5 player in the NBA, and imagine that front court with Embiid and Anthony Davis. Jimmy Butler is a small forward. I think it really works, and I think that makes them a step beyond where they are now. They're a good team in the Eastern Conference now, and they're only 4.5 games back of first place. Anthony Davis, first place.
All right, Jake, help me out, please.
So just to go off what Jack said, if the Sixers were to do that and trade Ben Simmons, they move Jimmy Butler to point guard. Jimmy Butler likes playing point guard, so I think that would go well. But as Gia said, they need a creator off the bench. I think they could maybe try and work with the Magic and try and make a trade out for Terrence Ross. And for a backup center, if they need a true shot blocker, maybe they could trade for Dwayne Dedmon from the Hawks. but I don't really think this Anthony Davis trade is going to work, dude. I'm just
Trade
saying,
me.
they don't have enough. It's going to take Ben Simmons and so many other pieces, and probably that Heat pick in 2021. It's going to take too
Not
much.
even theirs to do.
I
That's
just-
the Suns pick.
I just really don't think he's a good fit either. We already have a big man with a similar play style. Sorry. And it's just going to get congested in the paint if we have him too. And I don't know. I think we're a contender without him. Sorry.
I don't like his injury history. You know, like I understand the past 2 years he's played 75 games, which is awesome. That's promising. But, you know, before that, he couldn't even play 60, 65 games, you know, without getting a serious injury. And I don't like how he seems to have the same kind of injury problems as Embiid, maybe not as frequently. All right.
So, okay, he's played 75 games in the past 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you know, he sits out a couple games for rest. He had the playoffs. I think the Pelicans made the playoffs both the past 2 years. Now think of this. Carson Wentz, you're a Philly fan. If Carson Wentz goes the next 2 years and he plays 15 games a season, are you going to say, dang, he's injury prone if they're doing well, they're making the playoffs, he just sits out at that last game of the season because they're making the playoffs? No. You're going to be happy. Same thing, Anthony Davis. He's not actually injury prone. He's been healthy the past 2 years. He had injury problems. It's like Steph Curry with his ankles. You know, he's good now. Anthony Davis is good now. Top 5 player. Sixers should trade for him.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I think you're making good points. I get that. It's just I think we already have a top 5 player, in my opinion, in the NBA in Embiid. I don't
Two
think
top 5 players. If not, the Raptors will do it, and they'll have 2 top 5 players. You don't want the Raptors to do it.
Well, whatever happens, I don't think we need Anthony Davis in Philly, and I don't think the organization thinks that either. But we'll save this talk for when the trade deadline comes.
Okay.
I guess we could look at the upcoming schedule. You know, this Sixers team, as I said, is in the midst of ending this really tough stretch of Western Conference games. However, they are going to come home to the Fargo, which is going to be really nice. However, the opponents that we have to play, they're the top 2 teams in the East and Western Conference. So how are you guys feeling for these upcoming games?
It's going to be tough. But like I said earlier, I think it's really going to be a proving ground for the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. When the Raptors have Anthony, I'll leave it alone. It's going to be a tough 2 games, no matter what, even if they did have Anthony Davis. But yeah, it is going to be a proving ground. If they can win these 2 games, then they are definitely solid contenders, and I will be convinced, as I am not right now.
No.
Yeah, I'm not completely sold on them as maybe winning the East right now. But, I mean, I think they can win the Kings game. They shouldn't overlook that. The Kings are a young team that could really shock them if they just go in there thinking they're going to beat them. I like the matchups they can bring to the Nuggets game. I think Embiid can have a really good game on Jokic. But the Raptors game is what troubles me. Like, they have so many pieces with Lowry and Siakam and Kawhi Leonard. There's so many different pieces they have, and they're so deep of a team.
Is that the best defensive lineup? Like maybe the best defensive starting lineup in the league right now?
Probably, but it's probably the best roster 1 to 15 in the NBA as well. They can get contributions from their entire bench on any given night if they get playing time. So that's what's going to separate them. Is the Raptors have enough depth, and the Sixers don't really have that much depth compared to them. So that Raptors game is going to be what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and you got to remember the last time we played the Raptors, they didn't have They didn't have Ibaka or Kawhi. So, you know, the last time that we played the Raptors, and it was at home, so we got to remember that too. You know, I guess nevertheless, it's going to be more fun, and it's going to be more intriguing to see a Sixers game where they get to play a full lineup, fully healthy, and that's the best team in the East right now, arguably, behind the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's going to wrap it up for Sixers talk. Now we're going to move on to our stars of the month, and I'm going to start off with probably the face of Philadelphia sports right now, and that is Joel Embiid. He has just been absolutely astonishing this season. He's finally coming into his own. He's not getting as injured as he was when he first got drafted, and he has been arguably the MVP of the league. Now I know Harden exists. I know AD is out there. I know Giannis is really having a career year as well. But Joel Embiid, without the Sixers, without Joel Embiid is like the boat without the captain. That's just the way I see it. That's how valuable he is. So Gia, we're going to move on to you.
Yeah, I picked Jay Wright. especially just because it's the month of January. In December, Villanova lost to Kansas, and they were 8-4 after that. They were blown out by Michigan, lost to Penn, and Furman and Kansas.
Yep.
They were a mess defensively, and offensively, they were pretty much obsolete as well. But in January, they won 8 straight games, and now they're first place in the Big East. And the improvement of the team was definitely a result of the coaching staff, Jay Wright. So.
Yeah, and I'm really liking how well they've gotten off to Big East start this year. Jake, we're going to move over to you. You wanted to talk about Embiid as well.
Yeah, so everything you said, I mean, I agree with all that, but it's just crazy that Joel Embiid's playing at an MVP pace, and just over this last month, he's been playing better. He's averaging 2 more points a game, same amount of rebounds. He's now over 2 blocks a game. So it's just crazy. He's at an MVP pace, and he's the one that's getting better and improving throughout the year. So it's really good to see from Embiid.
All right, Jack. Now, this is completely normal, guys, because you know it is Sports Talk Philly, but Jack wants to give the region a little bit more recognition. So Jack, please take it away.
Now, I'm about to talk about another player in the division. What? D'Angelo Russell. He's a part of this Nets team that is one of the only 6 teams in the East above 500. We all talk about those big 5, and now Oladipo's injured, so whatever, they'll probably drop, but whatever. The Nets are above 500, and it's a lot of this guy's fault, as well as Spencer Dinwiddie, but he's injured right now. D'Angelo Russell will probably be an all-star this season.
You think?
Yeah, he will. I mean, it's the East, so it's pretty easy. The Lakers gave up on him. They drafted him number 2. When you draft a guy number 2, you're like, this is our guy. Lonzo Ball comes around, shiny new toy. Get out of here. Go to Brooklyn, the lesser of the New York teams, and he's turned them into a winner.
And now he's turning them into the better New York team, right?
Exactly. And where's Lonzo right now? In trade talks. The Lakers don't even really want him anymore.
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell, all-star.
You can always count on Jack to give you the unusual stars of the month. But that's going to do it for us here for Sports Talk Philly. You can catch us on social media at Sports Talk LTV on Twitter, LaSalle.edu/LaSalleTV, as well as YouTube and Facebook. We thank you guys for tuning in, and we hope you will tune in next week for another edition of Sports Talk and more Philly sports. Have a great weekend, everyone.